What's going on, golf addicts? Welcome to the Tour Junkies golf show for the Better Sports Network. Talking Travelers Championship this week, an elevated event. Obviously, we're going to debrief on the U.S. Open. And actually, I guess this is the Tour Junkie show because my partner in crime, my boy Pat, he's on vacation. You know, it's June. It's time for vacay. It's just me and Tony, me and producer Tony, hanging out, doing our thing. Excited. Yeah, there's we are gonna milk this photo for everything that it's worth. This will be the second show that I've done this week by myself. I don't love it. I really don't. A lot of people may, there's some people out there that think I just love hearing myself talk. I really don't. I don't. I mean, I do it for a living, which is better than, doing a lot of other things for a living. And so I don't mind it, but I don't just want to do the shows by myself. Great, thankfully, I did not do the Tour Junkies betting preview by myself. I had our friend Hunter Mahan. You may have heard of him, huh? 6-time PGA Tour winner, 3-time Ryder Cup member, just overall stud. 1/4 of the golf boys. Hello, huh? That's a huge guest. He came on our show, did the betting preview with me. We recapped the U.S. Open, but I also got Hunter on some other takes, and we're gonna play part of that for you here in segment 2. You're gonna hear Hunter talk about the LIV PGA situation, Jay Monahan's situation. I even asked him about Tiger. Hunter knows Tiger. So I mean, poor Hunter. Like he grew up. He is one of the guys. Like if you think about it, and this is a sidetrack here, we'll get to the U.S. Open recap here. But if when you think about peak Tiger Woods when he was just peaking and peacocking everywhere, no one. I mean, everybody just showed up just being like, oh, God, well, I'm not winning this week, right? Phil maybe beat him more than anybody else. But Hunter grew up playing his best golf in Tiger's best golf era as well. Poor guy. Anyway, great dude. Still won 6 times on the PGA Tour. I think he had like 7 runner-ups too. Had a great conversation. Obviously, I'll preview the Travelers Championship. I'm going to do that at the end of the show. Get my cash line up and do all that. But let's talk about the U.S. Open because there's so much to talk about. First of all, I mean, this is the Better Sports Network, and we talk gambling here. So I will say this. I did a debrief on our DFS show about what we learned from a DFS standpoint. And I guess, you know what, I could kind of segue this into just the tip. I'm not necessarily doing that, Tony, but if you want to, you can. I'm going to give you 2 just the tips this week. I'm going to give you one now, and I'm going to give you one in segment 3. But this was if you were a DFS player, this was a very chalky U.S. Open. I'm talking, dude, some of the chalk absolutely crushed. Scheffler, Xander, Rory, Tommy Ladd, Rick. Bryson was actually pretty chalky, and he scored pretty well too. He scored better than he ended up finishing in the tournament. Even Wyndham Clark, and this kind of got me a little bit. So late on Wednesday night, Clark had kind of caught some steam. One of the things I like to do handicapping a golf tournament is on Tuesday and Wednesday, I love to look at head-to-head matchups, and I look at the sharpest books. Most of them are overseas books. The sharpest books, where they set the line, and then how they move. Where do the large money, big-time, golf gambling jokers, where do they see issues with the sharp books line, and how does the line move? And late on Wednesday, Wyndham Clark had 2 lines that he was a dog, a slight dog, I will say that, very slight dog. One was the Siwoo Kim. The other one I can't remember. But he flipped both of them. And I notated that in our Discord and just said, hey, here's some lines that have flipped, 2 from Wyndham Clark. So there was at least some late love or some late steam on Wyndham Clark in the betting and DFS markets. In DFS, he was starting to kind of be this guy in the mid 7K range, 12, 11, 13%, 14%. Right there underneath, I think he was right, just priced underneath Ricky in DFS, who was surging in the 20 to 25% range. And, we talk about it every week. You got to make decisions. You got to have ownership leverage in your lineups. You got to pivot. As Pat likes to say, pivot when I pivot when I pivot. You got to do that. And I sat there and I looked at Wyndham Clark and I was like, God, I've been bullish on Wyndham Clark. I'm about to prove that to you here in just a second with a video. But I've been bullish on Wyndham Clark, and I hate myself for missing the Wells Fargo 75-1 or whatever hit after betting him for a lot of the spring, and I missed it. And I just sat there and looked at him in DFS and just said, nah, I think I'm going to eat the chalk with Ricky. And I'm only going to do that. I'm going to limit my chalk intake here in the mid sevens. I'm just going to play Ricky, which looked great for a little bit, especially after Thursday. And then Ricky flamed out on Sunday dreadfully, and Wyndham Clark hoists the U.S. Open trophy. Listen, there's lessons learned. The lessons learned in DFS are sometimes you do have to you do have to eat the chalk at times. Like, listen, golf bettors and golf DFS players are sharper now than they've ever been. There's more tools out there than there's ever been. There's more eyeballs on the game, I think, than there's ever been. There's data and algorithms and, freaking math, just math everywhere. It's all out there, and everybody's got math at their fingertips to just do bloop, 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 run numbers. Here's the best players. And with that, the best players are often identified by a lot more people now. Me and Pat started doing this in 2015. There was no math about players, no algorithms, no models. It was the wild, wild west. You just scrolled DraftKings and you click some names. How have they been playing? How have they played here? Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Get your ass in my lineup. That's how we used to do it back in the day. But not anymore. So sometimes the chalk hits. The chalk hit at the U.S. Open. But that's DFS, okay. Wyndham Clark is a stud. I'll say gone. There was a day in golf, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe. There's probably 15, 20 years ago and all the way before that, when to really hit your stride and hit your peak in professional golf, you had to be in your 30s. You had to be 30, 31, 32. That's when guys peaked outside of Tiger. And then Jordan Spieth comes along, and Rory comes along, and Colin Morikawa's, and these type of guys, they come out very young and they have immediate success. And everybody starts to say, oh, that's how it's got to be. But Wyndham Clark didn't do that. Wyndham Clark, I believe he was the best. I'm pretty sure he was an NCAA national champion. I don't remember. Or at least he was the best to come out of his conference at Oregon. He was a highly ranked college golfer. And he just never won on the PGA Tour. He kept his card every year. I don't remember Wyndham Clark going back, having to lose his card and go back. I don't think he ever did that. So he did enough to keep his card. But he was never a guy that anybody thought would win anything, despite having two really important tools to win on the PGA Tour. Hits the ball a freaking mile and putts the eyes out of it. Never understood that term, by the way. What is that about? Putts the eyes out of it. I didn't make that up. I hear people say that. But he's always had those things. But then he leveled up this year. And we've talked about it, it's documented. The iron play has turned a corner. Seemingly the mental game has turned a corner. And then he wins an elevated event, arguably a field just as strong as the U.S. Open's field, if not stronger, with the bottom end being some of the qualifiers, but wins an elevated event at the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow. A course that's hosted a major championship, a course that's more difficult than most on the PGA Tour, that demands distance. And, it's like, hey, now when you take a look at that and you start thinking about it, it's like, well, dang, this dude could do something here at the U.S. Open, and he did. But I'm going to victory lap here because I haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to victory lap in the outright market since the last outright winner that I hit was Sam Burns at the match play. And I still didn't have Wyndham Clark on the card. I had Ricky at 60-1 that I got on Sunday afternoon. Didn't work out. But I will say this. I put up this Instagram video the Monday after he won the Wells Fargo. And I got a little bit of hate for this, but I'm gonna let this play and victory lap here. He could be better than Max Homa in the next 2 to 3 years. This is Hot Coffee Hot Takes presented by Front9Coffee.com. Use promo code TJ10 to get 10% off any order. It took Max Homa 66 starts roughly to get his first PGA Tour victory. In those 66 starts leading up to the first win, he had 3 top 10s. Wyndham Clark's been on the tour a little bit longer, not lost his card though. Showed up about 2018. It took him 134 starts before he got his first victory, but before that he had 15 top 10 finishes to Homa's 3, and he's had 5 top 10s since November. Here's the thing about Wyndham Clark. He has has the modern PGA Tour game, and he's always had it. He hits the ball a freaking mile, and he's a tremendous putter. You could argue probably a better putter than Max has been over the long term, but what's been missing with Wyndham Clark is the iron play. And what we've seen is in October, something happened. His irons have been freaking dialed, and I think Wyndham Clark, seriously, in the next 2 to 3 years, has the game to be as good as Max Homa. And he might even actually have a better career than Max Homa with 6 PGA Tour victories already. So when Whoa, DB, I don't know, man. Six victories for Wyndham Clark and possibly a better career than Max Homa. Now, obviously, we're still very early on this. I mean, what would you rather have? Max Homa's 6 PGA Tour victories right now, or Wyndham Clark's Quail Hollow victory, or Wells Fargo victory, but a major, a U.S. Open? I mean, I guess to this point, you'd still say Max Homa's had a better career. But like I said, after the Wells Fargo, Wyndham Clark is coming. And he just arrived. And he just knocked through the household door. The average, household golf fan in America just got their eyes open to Wyndham Clark. But get used to it, because the dude's going to be on the Ryder Cup. He will be on the Ryder Cup team. Okay? But, I mean, it's not just the play. Swaggy is all get out, too. I mean, just swagging. The damn on Saturday, can we show the club twirl? On Saturday, the club twirl heard round the world. In the darkness of LACC, Wyndham hits this shot. I think it was into 18 that he stuffed and made for birdie. It was a 2-shot swing between him and Ricky. God, I mean, this
aimed right at it. Watch his path. It comes way right on the target.
Oh, he likes it.
The all-time twirl.
There should be a good one.
Twirl of the year.
Dude, that club twirl, that thing had, like, birds in flight got knocked off balance when the club spun around. Kim Kardashian was walking somewhere down whatever that road is, Rodeo Drive, and her hair blew a little bit or whatever, or her lip injection like kind of flapped in the wind. I don't know, but there was a whole that club twirl was disgusting. And the announcers, which I'll get to in a second, love to inform us all day on Sunday especially that Wyndham's whole thing was be cocky, play cocky. Mentally, that's what he was telling himself. Be cocky. And basically, I think what that probably meant for him is like, hey, dude, like act like you've been here before. Act like you belong here. Act like you're not intimidated by Rory, by Scheffler, by, I don't know, probably wasn't that intimidated by Ricky, to be honest, but Ricky. And he did just that, dude. And it's that club twirl on 18 was just, that's a panty dropper. I mean, we talk about it concerts and stuff, maybe something happens and there's a panty dropper. If you were a female that was into golf and also men, and also Wyndham Clark's a handsome dude. I mean, let's just admit it, right? And we've known a lot of PGA Tour players for a long time. And a lot of times we'll ask them like, hey, on the low, who does the best outside the ropes, if you know what I mean, from a golf standpoint? And they all say Wyndham Clark. Okay. Now, he had it going on, but I mean, when you combine what he was doing on the national stage, the U.S. Open, to the chiseled jaw and the great beard, and then you do that kind of club twirl, that's a panty dropping situation all over households all over America. Honestly, it was probably a Father's Day gift to many, because Wyndham helped a lot of guys out that may not have been able to, enjoy their Father's Day as much had Wyndham not given, their significant other a little something to dream about, because that club twirl was effing sexy. Okay. All right. That's enough of that. I didn't really plan on getting into that. I don't know, Tony, you should have maybe just turned me off at that point. Rory comes up short again, but I will say this as a noted Rory hater, and I'm, that's not the right word, but as someone who believes that Rory has a very beta side of him, I will say, I think Rory did his thing on Sunday. I think he did. I watched every hole, as much as NBC would let me watch, between effing playing through and numerous other commercials and Azinger and Hicks not shutting the hell up and an airplane buzzing around. But at least with my eyeballs, I feel like I saw a fair amount of golf from Rory. And, he looked good. He looked like he managed his game well. He didn't make dumb mistakes. He hit the ball great. He just made nothing. He made nothing. But I think if you're a Rory fan and you're I really want Rory to win another major because he's the PGA Tour Superman, then, Sunday was a good day for you because that might help him out. I think he played well. We go to Royal Liverpool, Hoylake, in just a month or so for the Open Championship, the last place that Rory won. Freaking 8 years ago, last time he won a major. But here, we're going to be back. Good for him. Good for Rory. Yeah. Ricky was just so flaccid. Wyndham was out there peacocking and helping out dads across America with sexy club twirls, chiseled jaws, and beard lines. Ricky, opposite. Flaccid as shit. His golf game was terrible. And he looked cool as a cucumber, like he always does. Very flat, very level affect, very not too high, not too up, not too down. Very Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka kind of business-like, not letting the U.S. Open grind get to him, which is great. All those things are great. But hey, you forgot your golf game. You forgot to hit greens in regulation. His iron play was terrible. What did he? Let me just look at. Maybe it was better than I thought. I just want to look at round 4. Fowler round 4. Oh no, God! He lost 3 shots on approach round 4. It was the second worst round of 65 players who made the cut on strokes gain approach was Ricky Fowler. So my eyes were not deceiving me. It was terrible. It was so terrible. And I did have high hopes holding the Ricky Fowler ticket, having banged the drum for Ricky Fowler on the Pat McAfee show, by the way. Speaking of panty dropping moments. So I went on the Pat McAfee show and talked about Ricky. And before he teed off, I was confident. I was feeling pretty good. I wasn't feeling like amazing, but I was feeling pretty good. Like, this is Ricky's time. This is destiny. US Open, Father's Day. Ricky's a dad now. He kind of looks a little more like a dad than he used to, And Wyndham Clark's not a dad that we know of. So he can't win on Father's Day. We got to have dads win on Father's Day at the US Open. That's what has to happen. Okay? And then from like hole number 1, when he didn't birdie number 1, the easiest hole of the day, it was just like, well, okay, well, that's not good. And then when he bogeyed 3 or whatever, it was just such a flat round from the jump. By number 3, I was like, well, this is out. This is done. And then I was cheering for Wyndham because I didn't want to see Rory win. So that's that. A lot's been said about the golf course. I'd rather talk about Paul Azinger and Dan Hicks. These guys, I have never been, I don't think I've ever felt so stupid listening to golf announcers. It was the clip in Happy Gilmore where he says, "Thank you for that. Was it Happy Gilmore? Yeah. Thank you for that. We are now all dumber for having listened to that." That's how I felt. Your number one rule of broadcasting, I'm pretty sure, is don't tell the people what they can see with their eyeballs. And unless Azinger and Hicks thought they were broadcasting to the blind, which maybe they did. Maybe somebody told them, "Hey guys, you guys are going to be on the blind broadcast today. It's radio only." Unless they thought they were doing that, then you don't have to tell me what I can see with my eyeballs. But then when you're going to tell it to me, be right, or at least mostly right. Have these guys ever seen the golf course before? Were they broadcasting from freaking like Afghanistan? Like, where were they? Azinger, the ball would literally, the top tracer off the tee would be barely past the ladies' tees. I don't even know if LACC lets women in. LACC seems like the most exclusive place in the world. They probably don't let women in still, and nobody knows about it. But the ball was maybe past the ladies' tees, and he would be like, oh, that's going up the left side. That's going to have to get to the right, or he's going to be in trouble. And what does the ball do? On the widest fairways in U.S. Open history that you could freaking park the Titanic horizontally in between, the ball lands 15 to 20 yards to the fairway side of the rough line. Perfectly fine. Like, and Azinger is freaking out. And then the chip from Wyndham, I think it was on number 9, when he's like, oh, that's a mistake, Dan. That's not going to stay there. The ball starts rolling. What does Azinger do? Double down. Like he's Jesus. Like the ball's going to stop rolling because he says it's not going to roll. And the ball keeps, he's like, oh, nope, that's not going to stay there. He's going to have a long, and the ball just keeps rolling. I'm like, Zinger, I'm looking at a guy who's about to make a 6-footer. You dingbat. What are we doing? And how many times did you have to tell me that at some tournament, Wyndham saw Ricky's putter and putted a few with it on the practice run, and then immediately told the guy in the truck to go make him one, and that's why he's putting. That's why he's putting with. You got 2 guys in the last group with identical putters. How many times do I have to know that? He told us that constantly. It was the worst experience. Azinger and Hicks and NBC need to be fired into the Marine layer for next year's U.S. Open. I don't want bring me Joe Buck. I don't care. Bring me bring me one of the ladies from The View. I don't give a rip. Don't bring me Dan Hicks and Paul Azinger again. I don't care if you bring me the worst announcer. Bring Joe Morgan, old baseball announcer. Is he alive? Bring him over. What's the guy from SportsCenter that lost his mind? Keith Olbermann. Bring him over. I will literally listen to anyone else but those 2 next year at the U.S. Open. I don't want to hear it. Bring me Fox back. Bring me anybody back to broadcast this damn thing. I don't care if E! News or, I don't care. Just not those guys. It was the worst. That's all I got to say about it. The U.S. Open was fun to watch, not fun to listen to. And I wish Ricky would have got it done. That's enough of that. I got to take a break. I got to go take a drink of something and chill out because now I'm all worked up again. I'm in a lather. That's what happens when I just get to rant by myself. And we're going to get to the Hunter Mahan interview right here on the Better Sports Network. And then I'm going to break down the Travelers. So stay right here. See you.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty fantasy football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a 1 season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Making you money in daily fantasy sports and golf betting. Tour Junkies on Better Sports Network.
So without further ado, let's bring in our guest, the man at TPC River Highlands when it first rolled out on the PGA Tour, and a guy who said he had hot takes on the U.S. Open. It's Mr. Hunter Mahan. Thanks, Hunter, for being here. Appreciate you taking the time, dude.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I wore my municipal shirt for in honor of Wyndham for the win. I don't know if you noticed. It's the only municipal shirt I have, and he's a municipal guy. I didn't know what I think about this collarless thing. Have you ever had? You tried one of these yet?
I have not. I noticed that yesterday when he was walking that there was no buttons, right?
Yeah.
It just went like just a little V, and I actually thought it looked pretty good. And good day for municipal, obviously for about 5 hours, a ton of publicity. So that was cool. That was cool all around. What we saw yesterday was pretty spectacular.
So I got to be honest. I couldn't tell who you were pulling for based on your responses to my tweets and based on like I know you're an Oklahoma State guy. You know, Ricky's Oklahoma State guy, but Wyndham started at Oklahoma State. So what was going on for you yesterday?
Yeah, obviously rooting for Ricky. I was just rooting for great play, right? I didn't want to see someone fall down the leaderboard. I wanted to see someone step up and hit big shots and kind of answer the bell. And that's sort of what Wyndham did. At the end of the day, he hit all the big shots and made all the big putts and the big up and downs. And Rory just couldn't get anything going in those last few holes. It seemed like every time I thought he was going to do something, like I thought on the par 5, was it 14, 15? I thought he was just going to bomb it down the middle and he was just going to have that walk and that strut down the fairway. And we were like, okay, he's going to go 2 under in the last few holes and he's going to post 11 and he's going to have to make Wyndham do something. And he just never did. And then when he piped on an 18, I'm thinking, here it is. This is great. You know, you can be aggressive on that flag. We just saw Scotty Scheffler hit it back, hit that kind of like the back edge and rolled back down. I'm thinking this is it. This is just going to be some high straight missile right at the flag. And he kind of pulls it, tugs the left. It was sort of deflating, I think, for everybody and all the fans kind of rooting for Rory and probably the ones at home. And Wyndham just got it done, man. It was all grit from him all day. And that was cool to see.
It really was impressive. I mean, I want to go down the board a little bit, but to start with Wyndham Clark, I mean, first of all, you know, obviously this is a degenerate gambling show. So
sure.
That kind of comes first. But, and I hate that, you know, and our fans, our followers are going to know this. Like me and Pat have been looking at Wyndham early this year and saying like, this guy seems to have leveled up. Something has changed.
Yeah, sure.
And that's well documented from the Tour Junkies show. And then we missed him at the Wells, and it gutted me that we missed him because we had bet him a few times before that. And then we missed him at the Wells. On the Monday after the Wells, I did a video on Instagram and I said, you know, possible hot take here, but Wyndham Clark is the real deal because he's always had this distance off the tee. He's always had this putter. He was the best player in college golf. So the pedigree's all there. And the two things that dominate on the PGA Tour, distance and putting, he has. It's always been the iron situation for him. It seems to have converted. And I said, Wyndham Clark could be like a Max Homa situation where it takes him a little bit of time, but all of a sudden he figures some things out. He clicks and he's potentially a top 10 player in the world. I talked about him being on the Ryder Cup team after the Wells Fargo. I got some interesting comments on Instagram for that. And now here he is a major champion and did exactly what you talked about. He just let him hang yesterday. Like, and obviously, I mean, I'll ask you about the coverage, but freaking Zinger and Hicks told us over and over again how his word of the day was be cocky, right? We got that message. And I loved it. And he really did. He really did go out there and, you know, despite the Rory swagger walk, you know, nips out, I'm the man, possibly going on in terms of tee to green, like Wyndham just didn't budge. And you know, he whiffed that one shot on 8 when he got stuck. Was it on 8 when he was in the bush? And I kind of thought, oh God, like, this could be, but he pulled it together. He got up and down from a tough spot there. He was very impressive. The kid's got chops.
It was a golf course where you didn't want to be behind, right? But you know, it was funny how they were talking on Thursday. Oh, it's too easy. All these low scores, and those scores just didn't really change throughout the week, right? The course got tougher. They knew what they had in terms of controlling the golf course, controlling the speed of the greens. The weather was great, so they knew they could hit the gas when they wanted to on the golf course.
Yeah,
and by the time we got there Sunday, making up shots was going to be really, really difficult. And because I thought Rory actually played really good, but those greens got real. I mean, they got real slick, and there was enough slope on them to where it was not easy to make putts. You couldn't really make up much on the back 9. Pins were just in these incredibly difficult places. When Rory's hitting these high irons up there, and he can't even come close to stopping it on the green. You know, it's pars are going to win. And it's always funny when we talk about Tiger and all his majors, and none of them are from behind. Well, it's good reason, because it's hard to come from behind in courses like this. It just doesn't happen. Anytime you try to hit the gas and do something, well, then you make a big mistake and you can make bogey or double, and then all of a sudden you just fell back even further when you were trying to make a birdie. So yesterday was all about grit, and it was all about overcoming. And he knew that it was kind of what we saw from Brooks in the last PGA. Great start, got a lead, and he just kind of what Tiger would do. Tiger would get a lead, and he would just make you come get him, and you just knew you couldn't, because it was so hard to make up shots. And he got that lead, and he got up 2-3, early. He got up on 5 on Ricky, so Ricky was kind of done after that, about the first 6-7 holes. And he just kind of kept going, and that's mental toughness is what you need to win on the PGA Tour, and he's got that in spades. Like, that was just, I mean, that was what he needed to do. His iron play still, it's a little spotty, but he's not afraid to fail, and he was absolutely clutch when he needed to be. And it was, like I said, I just rooting for. I just didn't want to see someone fall. I wanted to see someone rise, right? And that's what we always want to see in the highest level of competition, and that's what Wyndham did.
Hunter, before we get out of here, can I ask you about just kind of the state of golf, PGA, LIV, all the news that broke, maybe your thoughts, anything that you've heard, and also like one thing that we kind of forgot, and I thought we'd get somewhat of a reprieve from all that discussion with the U.S. Open, which we did. But 2 things: we haven't heard a thing about Jay Monahan. I haven't seen anything about Jay Monahan since he went in the hospital, or since he was hospitalized with the medical event, and it's really crazy to me that we've not heard from Tiger. It's very crazy to me that the golf world has not heard from Tiger since the announcement almost 2 weeks ago, I guess tomorrow. All your thoughts on all that?
I think with Tiger not saying anything, I think it's because the reality is nobody knows anything. And so there's no reason to make a statement about something you don't know about. And Tiger's probably just like wants information. He wants something other than what they're being given. And I don't think, from what I know, nobody knows what's going on. There's just no information from agents, from players, from people who would know and should know. There's nothing. They just don't know anything. And so there was the announcement that came out of nowhere. I thought it was almost fake, and it's just the way it was being reported and was being leaked. It was kind of crazy who was sort of delivering the information. And then when it actually came from Jay and from the PIF, it was sort of like they talked about this partnership, but then again, we don't really know anything about the partnership, right? So Norman's like, business as usual. This is a good day, I guess. But I think he's out. Obviously, I don't think there's any. I don't think their product has been very, very good. The LIV's product. I just think they've shown resilience and a real saying that we're going to be here and we're going to fund this because we want to be in the game of golf. And it's just been wild to see what has really happened and to see where we find ourselves today. And the question of where we're going to find ourselves in a year or 2 or 3 is really crazy. We have no idea. And that's kind of maybe the craziest part, is the lack of information. Yeah. And I don't know how, it's crazy to think, but I don't know how Norman survives this, and I don't know how Jay survives this, because this is, this is what commissioners do, is figure these things out. And he hasn't really figured anything out other than to sort of, I think, lose the trust of the players. I don't know how to look at it any other way. Yeah. And at some point, my thing is, how do players get representation in this? Because they have none. Yeah. And that's, as a player, and if I'm Rory, if I'm Justin and Jordan, all the big names, how do I get representation and a seat at the table? Because how do I trust Jay? Or, I love Jimmy Dunn. He's about as good a human as I've found. And Ed Hurley, you mentioned Ed Hurley, amongst the people in New York and a bunch hedge fund manager, like much big time people, he's a big time person in the world, like in the world. So there's a lot of really smart people there. But as a player, I need some sort of representation that isn't Jay at this point, because what I've seen is I just can't trust it, right? And this is this is my career, and this is my future, and this is We're talking about a lot of money, and I don't know who's in charge and
supposedly a
out of it.
tour that is for the players.
And that's the problem, right? Is a lot of lip service and then nothing to really back it up, right? Like they announced this thing and said, well, it does have to go to the PGA policy board for a vote. Clearly, they don't care about the vote. Clearly, that it's insignificant because they just made an announcement saying this is going to happen. So I don't know. And that's and looking at all this I've been pretty consistent. I've always been on the player side. Players are making money on this side, and players making money on the PGA Tour. That's great. But now I'm like, the players need representation, and they probably need some sort of legal representation to have a seat at the table and go like, this is our person who's going to represent us here. What is actually going on?
How do they get that? Like, like we see in the NFL when they do the collective bargaining agreements, and you have like is that how they do that? Is that
they're going to have to do like? I know people are like, well, you can't unionize. They're in a charity, and I get that. But if it's going to be a commercial entity that's for profit, I'm sure they can do something like that.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to have to stand there and say, no.
Yeah.
We're not going to play anything, right? No. We're just going to sit there and say, well, this is a strike, right? Like, and at some point, maybe that's what they have to do because it's ridiculous for the players to not know what's going on, which is, as you've said, is, well, it's your tour. It's like, the heck it is. You've shown us that it's not our tour. But we're going to have to take some sort of the power back and have some sort of representation that we choose and we feel comfortable with going into this part. I love Jimmy Dunn, but he kept talking about the PGA Tour. I'm on their side. Well, who's on the player side in all this? Mm-hmm. And why don't they have some sort of, option to say, well, why aren't we being notified of all this stuff? The secrecy and the lack of communication and not knowing is what's just completely mind-boggling when you're talking about a professional sports league and all the ramifications and everything that's going on, and nobody knows anything. It's pretty wild.
Do you think any of the antitrust stuff that our government's trying to do, you think any of that's going to work? I feel like there's no way guys as powerful and as smart and as connected as Hurley and Jimmy Dunn and the PIF side.
And knowing Ed Hurley and who he is and what he does, it doesn't feel like that's going to be an issue.
Right. They wouldn't. This would have never happened if they thought it was a real issue. Right.
Right. I think it's a government, just probably overreach. I don't know. Maybe they can do something. I just don't see. If anyone would know in any world, in any place, it'd be Ed Hurley. He would know all the litigation and the rules about all this stuff. If you didn't tell me, I would be more on the side of, I don't really know, but knowing Ed, who's in charge of this, or running this, he knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. Obviously, I mentioned you're a 3-time Ryder Cup player. Is that right?
Yes.
3-time. You got the Ryder Cup picture in the background that looks really sweet. Do you think that LIV players, both on the American side and the European side, should be playing in the Ryder Cup in September?
They won't be this year, no.
Do you think they should?
I think Brooks has a case. I would have no problem. If he qualifies, and he should be on the team. I think it would be hard. Zach's not going to pick. I don't think Zach's going to pick any of those guys. I don't think, like DJ. I don't think DJ would have to probably win the British to probably be an automatic. I think he has. I'm not sure if he has a chance at that or not. But I guess he would. But I don't think he'd be a pick.
So you're for if they play and they earn their points the way that currently it's set up to earn their points, which is only in for them at this point majors. You're fine with them playing.
I would be, yes. Yeah. I don't think I have any problem.
But you don't think there's any way they're going to make a pick? Because like my case would be DJ because of DJ's team record, right? The way that he's performed in team.
I would have no problem picking him, but I don't think he'll be picked.
Gotcha.
He's that good. Like he was the only guy who played 5 last Ryder Cup. Only guy.
Won all 5 points.
And he won all 5. Yeah. Because he's that guy. Because he's a guy who can just do those things, and he can walk into the team room and be totally fine, right? Most guys have no problem with Brooks and DJ. It's just guys who have sued, the guys who have been, Bryson and Phil, who have been very, antagonistic toward the PGA Tour. Yeah. And those are the guys that have no chance, right? Like, Brooks, Bryson's got no chance to be on the team. Like, he's gonna have to win. But I how people have handled themselves in a situation is going to matter a lot. It's just from the European side, it's very sad to see what has happened to the legends of Ryder Cup to not be a part of it anymore, in really any capacity, when I think they want to be a part of it as well. They're not saying like, you know, they want, that is the sad part to me. And it hurts because the Ryder Cup is so special and those guys are such legends in that part of it, for them not to be involved in any way going forward. I hope that changes in some component. But, you know, as I've said before, the you know, the animosity between everybody and how it's been shaped is the part that I didn't see coming, and it's been the most disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more, man. Listen, I really appreciate you taking extra time today. Hour and a half almost doing this thing. Hunter, it's a lot of fun. We appreciate you, dude. And it's really cool for us to have a player that has done all that you've done in the game on the show, and you know, helping me out when Pat's out of town. You know, you're definitely the best fill-in I've ever had for Pat in 8 years.
Perfect. That's good to know. Good to know. I am very excited.
What a high bar. What an achievement.
I know it. And I can't tell you how much I'm excited for this week's Travelers. I mean, I just know the cash will be flowing in. It's going to be like Niagara Falls of just raining down on me for all of our amazing picks. It's just, it's a no-brainer. There's going to be a 4-way tie. I know it. Tommy Fleetwood's going to be there. Chaz is going to be in the playoff. You know, Cantlay's probably going to win it on the third hole. That's what I think it's going to happen.
Dude, the last time I actually hit an outright, it was a sweat-free, at least at the end, outright. I had Sam Burns and Cam Young at the match play.
Wow.
And then they both make the finals. I mean, the match against freaking
you were a winner, nonetheless.
And Rory, those matches were very stressful. But once that happened, you know, it was just
it's incredible to, you know, you're like, I've won. And I don't even care who wins. Like, it's just, where's my money?
But that's the last time I hit one. So it's been a long freaking time. If Cantlay and Tommy Ladd and Thigala and English are all up there on Sunday, boy, that would just be delightful. I hope.
Well, I'll be, you know, Twittering you, and we'll be letting the world know how smart we are.
All right, and Ryder Cup coming back.
Can't wait.
Patrick Kane, the longtime Chicago Blackhawk, who was traded from Chicago to the New York Rangers this year, set up for free agency. But news came yesterday that he has now had hip surgery at the age of 34, and he is going to be out for 4 to 6 months. Now, Kane is probably going to Toronto as a Hall of Famer. Not to Toronto as a Maple Leaf, but, you know, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's got 3 Stanley Cup rings. He's one of the all-time greats in Chicago Blackhawk history. I was shocked when I looked at the free agency rankings this year going into the offseason, and like Patrick Kane was, I saw a couple places where he was the number 1 free agent. I saw a few more where he was number 3 or number 4 or 5. I couldn't wrap my head around that. I am surprised, and maybe it speaks more to the available free agents, and I think that is part of the case. I mean, you've got, you know, I guess Bergeron's out there, Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly. Like, to see a guy coming off the season, Patrick Kane had a bad season. It might have been his worst season, but he had 57 points in 73 games. I was surprised to see that he would be sought after in this market. Now, he is a veteran. He is a respected dude. He's got the Stanley Cup rings, all of that, but paying $6-7 million a season for a 34-year-old, couldn't see it. And now with this hip surgery that was announced yesterday, who signs this guy? And I mean, Patrick Kane was dealing with a hip issue all year. Now, he played through it, give him credit. He chose to have the surgery. He probably knew that if a team even was interested in him, they'd look at the meds and they'd put him through a physical and say, oh, this ain't going to happen. So he just decided to take care of it. Now, you play this out 4 to 6 months, you're talking anywhere between like October and Christmas for Patrick Kane. So even if you sign the guy, you're going to have a guy nearing 35, and you're going to get him for a half season. So I will be following that market. I mean, is anybody giving him more than like a $3 million base or $2 million base? Is anybody giving him more than a year? I mean, sure, there'll be incentives and options and all of that, but there's a guy that lost a lot of money, getting set for NHL free agency. Again, that opens on July 1st.
Now back to Tour Junkies.
Damn it! Hit one good fucking iron shot.
I don't think you like that one.
On Better Sports Network.
We just wrapped up the third major of the year, which means we are another step closer to football season kicking off, which means fantasy football season is returning. And there's no better way to dominate your league than the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide, available now. Listen to what all you get. You get your cheat sheet plus one-stop shop for dominating your fantasy football drafts. You get authored by proven fantasy winners, all that content. It can help you with your dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, best ball, and more. You purchase it for $26.99 or get it free with a monthly or annual All-Pro subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm All-Pro and get immediate free access to the draft guide. So go check out fantasyalarm.com. All right. I've calmed down from the U.S. Open rant. Hunter Mahan's interview was fantastic. Tons of great content there from Hunter. He did promise us that he would come back for the Ryder Cup. Nobody arguably that we could find better to come on our show, better than Hunter Mahan to talk about the Ryder Cup. 3-time Ryder Cupper, great team USA guy. So looking forward to that. But let's talk a little bit about the Travelers before we wrap up the Tour Junkies golf show here on the Better Sports Network. It's another elevated event. So big time purse, big time players, big event here at TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut, which I hear is basically Hartford. I don't know what the difference is between Hartford and Cromwell, but they got to be right here. So Travelers Championship, great event, top names, all that good stuff. I actually want to skip to just the tip now, though, because it's pertinent before I get into all this other stuff. And when we look at the outright betting odds for the Travelers, and this is the first time the Travelers will have seen an elevated event. Now, normally it does get a pretty good field. I will say that. Normally it does, but not a field like this. When you're looking at, to me, especially names up top or in the middle of the outright board, I think an interesting tiebreaker, if you're having to make some decisions, would be this travel situation, and have they historically come and played this event after the U.S. Open? Because the Travelers, historically, is right after the U.S. Open, with the exception of 2020 when it was COVID year, and it kind of occurred, around the same time. It was in the summer, I believe, but not after the U.S. Open. Because there's, especially for the top players in the world who really get to dictate their schedules, they either like to play the week after a major or they do not, and they make their schedules accordingly. And so if they've done it a certain way for a certain number of years before this one, which is a weird year from a scheduling standpoint because of these elevated events and because of the requirement to show up at these elevated events if you're one of the top names, it just looks a little different. Jon Rahm is an example of that at the top of the odds board, alongside Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Patrick Cantlay, Xander, those kind of guys. Rahm is up there. Rahm has played. He played here in 2020, but again, that was COVID year. That was when we had a break from golf, and golf came back, and he showed up and he did his thing. But before that, I think he only played here once as an amateur. He played here maybe 1 or 2 times as a professional back in 2016, but chose not to come here because Rahm does not like to play the week after a major. In fact, in a press conference today, he said, let me see what he said. He said, I got it right here in front of me. Major weeks can be taxing, and I've always tried to set up my schedule around not playing those weeks. Now, I can't tell you what I would have done this year because it's a little bit different. But what I mean is it's a tough one, especially when you're going across the country. You're going from, these guys are going from LA to Hartford, Connecticut. He says, I can tell you with certain confidence that I probably wouldn't have been here even though I love the tournament so much. With that said, they've done a great job making players comfortable, having the charter flight, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they do everything they can. It's just sometimes it doesn't fit in the schedule. In this case, I'm really glad this year happened the way it did. It happened so I can come back. No, you're not. You're not, John. You're not. John, you'd rather not be playing this week. That's what that means, which I think helps you, it can help you make a decision up top. A guy in a similar situation who's a little further down the board is Matthew Fitzpatrick, who's around that 30-1, 35-1. Matthew Fitzpatrick also only played here COVID year. Typically does not like playing weeks after majors, except for the RBC Heritage, the week after the Masters, because he loves that course. He grew up going and playing that course. But I think you need to look at guys' schedules and say, is this something they normally do? play the week after. And if they don't, I'd be wary. Like, especially coming from LA, if they made the cut. If they didn't make the cut, I don't think it matters as much. But if they played 4 days on a tough golf course, mentally, emotionally, physically, and then they traveled all the way across the country, charter flight, PJ or not, it's hard to do. So I think just be aware of that. Up top, I like Patrick Cantlay the most because he's chosen to come here every single year. He loves this place. I like him the most. I don't know that I want to bet him right now outright. I think 10-1 is too short. I'd like to either wait on a possible live opportunity. Maybe he gets off to a slow start, see if we can get a longer number, or I'll just bet him top 10. I think I might like that better. It's like plus 135 or so, top 10 on FanDuel for Patrick Cantlay. Because, the other thing is, like, can we trust him to, like, finally close the door on it? It's been a minute since he's won. It's been August since he won. And I would like to see him win. So, I don't know. Maybe the top 10 is the best number at a course he loves to come to. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to do the cash game lineup. By the way, last week's cash game lineup cashed again. We are now on a streak, okay? The 50-50 double up DraftKings cash lineup from me and Pat is streaking. Insert Will Ferrell clip. We're going streaking. Insert it right now. We did it. We're doing it. We got a 5 of 6 through last week. Mito Pereira missed the cut, but we had Xander, we had Fowler, we had Tommy Ladd who shot a 63 on Sunday. We had Hatton and Lowry. The balanced approach paid off. In fact, if you also entered that lineup into tournament contests like GPPs and stuff, I guarantee you probably cashed. You didn't finish up top, but you cashed. So that's good. Let's keep it rolling. Let me see if I can deliver. Now the pressure's on, though, because I got to do this by myself. I got to do the cash lineup by myself. Okay. And I have not prepped for this, so this is not good. I'm going to start. I wonder what happens if I start. Actually, I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to go down. 6,900, Mark Hubbard. Hubs has been playing great. Speaking of a guy like Wyndham Clark, Hubbard has kind of seemingly leveled up his iron play lately, if you look at the data. He didn't get in the U.S. Open, so he's rested and he's hungry. I like that. He's played here the last 3 years, 46th, 13th, 37th. And he's playing better now than he has any of those 3 years coming in. And he's 6,900. And I actually think I normally would not choose a $6,900 guy to go in a cash lineup. But for Mark Hubbard, I'm in. Another guy who I really like here in this mid-range, and he is a conundrum, is Denny McCarthy at 7,600 on DraftKings. Denny McCarthy, he is the weirdest. Denny McCarthy fits TPC River Highlands to a T. To a T. His course history here sucks. You would think that Denny shows up to TPC River Highlands and just, like, every year he's ever shown up here, his clubs didn't make it off the plane. And he's playing with like a rental set from the pro shop, and they're all senior flex. I don't understand how in the world he hasn't played well here. But he does everything so well for this place, and he's in such good form at 7,600. I think we got to roll with it. And I'm building up to this. I want to try and fit Cantlay in a cash lineup. The next guy I'm plugging in is Russell Henley at 7,800. I think Russell is going to be chalk in GPPs, probably worth fading, but I bet him on Monday at 50-1. He checks all the boxes here. And he's too cheap for how he's been playing lately. He's got a great record here too, way too cheap. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to plug Patrick Cantlay in. So I have 2 players left at 8,750. What do I want to do now, huh? The mid range is intriguing. Tom Kim, I think I want to go. I think I want to go Tom Kim. I like that Tom Kim, no wife, no kids, 20 years old. Who cares that he flew across the country? And what else does he have to do but play golf for $20 million purse? And he played great. He led the field. Or no, he didn't lead. He was 4th in the field in strokes gained approach last week at the U.S. Open. And the putter and short game made an appearance, which we haven't seen lately from Tom Kim. So love that. That leaves me 9,400 left for my cash play. I'm just going to go ahead and put right back in Tommy Fleetwood because he continues to do his thing. A 63 on Sunday was delicious. I don't know. I mean, call me an idiot, but I'm not getting off Tommy till he bucks me. So it's Patrick Cantlay, it's Tommy Ladd, it's Tom Kim, Russell Henley, Denny McCarthy, Mark Hubbard. That is your 50-50 or double up lineup in for DraftKings this week. All right. Did I give the other just the tip? Oh yeah, I did. The other just the tip was the thing about John Rahm and Matthew Fitzpatrick. So I got that. Oh dear. What else do we want to know? What else let's see. There's a couple of bomb top 40s. Where's my list? There's a couple of bomb top 40s that these guys are not going to like the top 20 upside scares me a little bit in an elevated field, but for a top 40, I think these guys could get it done. Shesticle Reavie, top 40, plus 240 on FanDuel. I've seen him a lot shorter on other books. Loves it here, past champion here, playing well, didn't play the U.S. Open, so a rested Shez. Let's go. Nate Lashley at 3-1, top 40, playing great. Irons are clicking. Not scared of an elevated event. Go back and look at what Nasty Nate's done in some elevated events here over the last few weeks. It's pretty solid. And then I was going to talk about first round leaders, but I'm running out of time. I actually kind of like the guys going off in the afternoon on Thursday. And I won't get into why, but I'll just tell you I kind of lean that way. So, and you guys know I'm going to pick long shots if it's first round leader time. So real quick, I'd go Tom Kim around 50-1, Russell Henley at 50-1, Aaron Rye at 90-1, Mark Hubbard at 110-1. Those are 4 first round leader bets that I kind of like. They're all bombs. They all go off in the afternoon. So there you go. Listen, that's it for me. I did it by myself, thanks to a little help from our boy Hunter Mahan. Me and Pat will be back next week to break down the action. Hope you guys have a great week. May your screens be green and bend over your bookies. Enjoy the rest of the week and come back to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. See ya!
5 weeks are so incredibly important in best ball because you can't change your lineup. You can't grab somebody off the waiver wire. You don't make changes. So you've got to be prepared. If you're taking 4 quarterbacks because you want to be sure you got to be very methodical about the schedule, especially the bye weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point by you because I don't, in redraft leagues and in especially in Dynasty leagues, I don't give a damn about bye weeks in a Dynasty league. I'm taking the talent that I need, especially if it's like a startup Dynasty league, man. And so, that's created situation. Matt Deutsch's league last year, I had a glut of, it was like week 9, I seem to remember. It was the bye week of death for me. Like, it's a 2 quarterback league. I had a bunch of QBs. They were like all on the bye at the same week. It was insane. At best ball, you've got to really be strategic about that, and it's almost more important than the statistics that you might put next to the player as the bye week to let you know, no, I can't go there because I got this guy, this guy, and this guy already.
You have an opportunity to get a quarterback you want, but your first 2 have the same bye week. You just can't do that to yourself. You have to be thinking it through. I do pay attention to bye weeks in my drafts. I just do. It makes me a lot less of a struggle bus situation when it comes to Buymageddon. I don't want to have 4 players. I don't want to have all my wide receivers and just be playing scrubs. I don't want to have to get rid of a player that I like, that's healthy, that's performing for me just because out of desperation.